Welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams-Birch, and this podcast, it exists for you. Whether you're a music lover, an educator, a choir member, each week we bring guests to the show to help explore what matters in music. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to the show. Hello, and welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams-Birch, and today, in honor of graduation, that's right, it is almost time for graduation here at SCAD in Savannah. We are featuring a senior who's graduating and leaving us, Ayden Behn. And in this conversation, Ayden and I talk about how to listen to music and what to take in. And y'all, Ayden was in my music theory class, and Ayden took music theory as a senior, is not any type of music major or minor in any way, but is a film person. And to see how Ayden's love and passion for opera and movies and film scores comes into play, Ayden was a joy to have in class. And so while Ayden was in music theory, the new Ariana Grande album came out, and Ayden did a unit presentation application on some of this, and I just had to have a deeper conversation. So thus, I am so excited for you to hear this conversation with Ayden Behn as we talk all things about listening to music, and we just go on a million different directions. I can't wait to see what Ayden does on this planet and to see what art Ayden brings to the world. So I'm really thrilled to bring you this episode, which is brought to you by our friends over at Perform International. Enough for me. Let's hear the conversation. I'm so glad you're listening today. Today, we are talking to someone that I am so excited to have a conversation with. Hello, Ayden Behn.
Hi, hello.
Thank you so much for giving time during your spring break to have a conversation with me.
Of course. Yeah, nothing I'd rather do. I'd rather spend my spring break talking to you the whole time.
Aw, that's the sweetest. Yeah. We had the best time in music theory this quarter.
Seriously, it was such a good class. I miss it already.
I've never had a class gel like that so fast. It's like we had that really weird weather day, the first day of school.
That was a really interesting start for me jumping into music theory, and we were playing the game. I was like 2 minutes late and we were already playing a game, and there was clapping and a Zoom PowerPoint, and you're up there laughing and dancing. But hey, it turned into something really beautiful for sure. Yeah.
I think it was such a cool full circle. Like looking back, I've been trying to process what made that class such a safe haven for creativity. Because we started by just dancing in our rooms and playing instruments on whatever was around. And then we ended with that big jam session when Davi played bass. Davi had written that riff for bass. And all of a sudden we just start ad-libbing as a class.
Seriously, that was like one of those moments of the entire class that I was like, oh wait, okay, these aren't just faces. These are like people who have really been paying attention to me and like everyone else around me. Oh my God. I missed the last day. That
was my favorite. It was so such a good class. But that's how, I'm telling the listeners, a very roundabout way of how I got to know Ayden Behn. Ayden walked into music theory this quarter, and just from day one, you were so invested in not just learning the concepts and like digesting the vocabulary, but applying it to your life. So you need to tell the listeners, who are you and how in the universe did you end up as an acting major with a casting minor at SCAD?
Sure. Well, I grew up in Western Maryland, which is literally the middle of nowhere. And like when I say I'm from Maryland, a lot of people associate that with Baltimore, like the city. I'm from nowhere even close to that, probably like an hour and a half away from Baltimore. And growing up, there was never really like, it felt like we were years behind everyone else. Like it kind of felt like we were still getting into like I remember middle school and elementary school, we still had like chalkboards and we still learned cursive when I was growing up. So it was just this very like academic, old value kind of environment. So when I was in, I think about first grade, I realized that I was like, okay, I think I want to like play pretend. I think that's fun. I'm having a lot of fun doing that. So my parents would drive me like an hour outside of where we live just to find any kind of theater. And so I started doing that, and I really just absolutely fell in love with it. I thought that being on the stage and like I said, like getting to play pretend was just the coolest thing ever. And like have all these people watching you do it. It just felt like I didn't have to be this person. So I really lived like all those years kind of putting it all on stage and not
Mm-hmm.
really figuring myself out. So then I got to high school, and freshman year, I was helping out in the guidance office. I would just kind of do like errands for them. I was like a peer counselor. So I had a lot of time just to sit in there, talk to the guidance counselors, whatever. And my one guidance counselor had brought up SCAD to me, and she was like, "This school's coming. Sounds like something you'd really be interested, even though you're just a freshman. Like, you should just go. No one else has signed up. So you get one-on-one time with this person to really like actually have a conversation, not just about the school, but in general about all of college, because you're so tiny that you will want to use this information." So I was like, okay. So I did go, and
Cool.
I just remember like immediately I was like, okay, yeah. Like there never in my mind did I think I could do anything else. Like I don't, math and science were never ever in my cards. Like English was cute, loved English. I was good at English. We delved into Shakespeare a little bit. I always had a little fun with that. But I was like, okay, art school is just gonna have to be the thing. And my parents immediately were like, "You're so crazy. We are not putting you in art school. It's just not realistic. Like those prices too are astronomical. It's not going to happen." So I was like, okay. Now I'm kind of scared because I really can't, like, I know I won't survive at like a state school. So I just remember really working super hard in high school for SCAD. Like I remember that was kind of like my end game. I was like, I just want to try to do enough to prove that I belong there. And eventually I had actually came to SCAD. I went to a SCAD day. I auditioned in person when you could still do that. And I didn't hear back for a few months. It was like, okay, thank you. And then whatever, just kind of went about. And I was working at Starbucks at the time. And I had gotten a call saying that they had sent my audition tape to the board of trustees, and the board of trustees had reviewed it, and they wanted to interview me for a full scholarship, which was like the craziest. I was seriously have never, like, I remember exactly what I was doing. I was taking an order in the drive-through, and I immediately was like, okay, I'm gonna go home because I don't really like I just gotta go. And everybody was fine with it. I told my parents. They were like, okay, maybe if you can get like a little bit of scholarship from this, we'll let you do graphic design. If we're paying for school, you have to do graphic design. That was the way it was. So I was like,
Okay.
okay, I'm not doing that. So I'm going to figure out a way. And I busted my butt in that interview. And I sort of through that just fell in love with SCAD even more because I had to do all this research and know the mission statement and just be prepared for any kind of niche question they would ask. And eventually I ended up getting the scholarship, and my parents were like, I mean, you got it yourself, so you now get to decide what you want to do. And acting, without a doubt in my mind, was like, yep, okay, awesome, cool. Now I get to do it finally.
That's such I got goosebumps when you said you got the phone call
Thank
because I
you.
can't
Thank you.
imagine not having you at SCAD. I mean, I tell people all the
Seriously.
time that like
Oh my
SCAD is the
gosh.
school of unicorns, and there's never a day that
Seriously.
don't love my job. It's just
It's
so much fun. We have so
it's
much fun.
crazy. And like I think especially like from my perspective as a student, like there are those professors who you can tell are kind of the ones with the resume, and they have these really old industry standard expectations for their students. But then like there have been very few classes, and I'm saying this because when I walked into music theory, I was like, okay, she's one of those professors who I just know that I'm gonna get so much out of by having so much fun. And that was like one of my like, I can't believe I am about to graduate because I want to take another class with you. But like,
Oh, you're so
it
sweet.
was so fun. It was so fun.
Well, how did you end up as an acting major? Because I know like you're directing, like you directed a
Yeah.
film for your final
Yep.
project, which is that's a
Yeah.
whole nother story.
Yeah.
That was amazing. But you've been in a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
You have taken all you're about to graduate.
Mhm.
What made you take music theory in the first place?
Well, that is actually, it's so crazy how I ended up so in high school, because I was an art kid, I was definitely a little bit of a loner. I was not necessarily an outcast because I think that has such like a negative depiction. I was alone because I didn't feel like I did fit anywhere else, and anytime I would try, it just never really worked out. And then I eventually found this group of friends who I think it was a senior, a junior, and then three other kids who were in my grade. And we all just were in the drama department, and we all kind of realized that we mesh really well, and we are people who really, I mean, for high school, it's like, how serious can you take high school drama? But we took it really seriously. So we just kind of clicked together. And the more time I spent with him, I realized that my friend Jack, who now goes to Eastman School of Music for vocal performance, he had gotten classical bel canto training in our tiny little town, which is like crazy that that
Mm-hmm.
was even an option. He is now, I mean, an incredible singer. So my chorus teacher went to Peabody, and my best friend goes to Temple for vocal performance. My other friend works at the Met Opera. Like, I've just
Sweet.
always been in high school. I just had this opera component kind of stuck on. And of course, I was always just really the acting and the musical theater, but that was sort of the introduction to a broader taste of music. And once that kind of came on, I was like thrilled. Like, this was like a whole new world that was blending like all of the production design of Broadway, but times 10. And then the talent to sing the entire time with an operatic voice is even crazier that people can do that. So I just really fell in love with how wide of, oh my gosh, there's just such a spectrum of music, and it's so exciting to be able to explore that. And I just developed this love for singing and just listening to music. And then I realized that I really wanted to take that to the next level. I felt like I sort of was only using 30% of my musical brain, I guess I should
Mm-hmm.
say. And now now having finished the class, I realized that 70% of music education just clicked right onto that 30%. And now it's like I have 100% of my access, 100%
Yeah.
access to my musical brain. And it's like weird to listen to music now because I'm picking up a whole nother thing than I was at first. Like, first it was just the lyrics, then it became everything else. And that was the ultimate goal, which I mean, it was really just a whim, sort of have an extra class. I've always wanted to take this. It sounds fun. Now here I am.
That is so cool. Well, you did a great job in class. So, for those listening, we don't do tests. We do these application presentations where
Yes,
students
love.
take whatever they've learned from the unit and apply it. So, Ayden, you did multiple presentations applying it to opera, and then
Yeah.
you did your final unit application and you started talking about a couple different albums and
Yes.
songs and doing chord progression analysis. And it just was
Uh,
so exciting. And something you said during unit 4 is what led to
yeah.
this right here.
Mhm.
You went down a rabbit hole with the Ariana Grande album.
Oh
So
yeah.
I
Oh
want
yeah.
to unpack some of that with you and let's hear what these
Yeah.
music vocabulary words sound like in real life and how we can
Sure.
change how we listen. So, how do you want to start? You want to start from the top of the album?
Yeah, I have some like anecdotal stuff. I think
Yeah.
this is a really, oh gosh, I hate talking about like music that I really care about because I feel like it sounds so crazy from an outsider's perspective. But
No.
I think that this album is really, it's a concept album. So her fans, I mean, general listeners, of course, but especially with her fans, there's a whole nother meaning that I feel like is being missed about the album. And I think everyone's looking for her to release this kind of like bad girl, like, she is just this pop artist girly who's just doing herself and talking about all her relationships. And while that is true, it also is like quite based off of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Like the album is called Eternal Sunshine. So that opens up this whole world of meaning that is more so about the movie than it is about the album and who she's talking about and her marriage and the whole scandal that's going on. So I think that like if you know the movie, if you've seen the movie, it explains, like, it made my listening experience so much more emotional because it tied in all of her emotions, but also the movie. So like
So
track by
perfect for
track,
you.
it's oh my
Acting
gosh, it
major,
was
film
incredible.
lover.
Yes, like, and especially this, I mean, in terms of like score wise, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, one of the most iconic soundtracks and score. I mean, the main theme is genuinely just chills up my spine just listening to it. So the fact that she took this and just, oh my gosh, she
Okay,
is
well,
so
pause,
talented.
pause, pause.
Yes,
Is
yeah.
the theme, is it the melody or the chord progression or the instrumentation? What is it that gets you about the movie theme?
I, it's definitely, oh my God. Oh gosh, let me think about this. It's everything. Like, I feel
Okay,
like I want to say the chord progression for sure.
okay. And
It's
how
like
it like
hard to
layers
explain
on it?
because yes, because
Mhm.
it'll like with the patterns and everything like we did talk about. It's such a simple melody, but the way it goes throughout the song, oh my gosh, it's crazy because it's the way it's played is meant to be very like upbeat kind of. I would love to know what key it's in, but it's very like playful, light, cutesy, and it's played at the beginning of the movie and then at the end of the movie and little times throughout, sort of like Inside Out, where we had Joy's theme that was in different keys played throughout different parts. It was very sort of that, but it just also has this weird sense of like simple nostalgia. Like it genuinely makes me tear up because I'm like, it feels so lighthearted and very calm. But at the same time, when you put that and put it over these scenes that are just so heart wrenching and they have all this meaning behind them, it seriously, I mean, that's like the missing puzzle piece. Like movie scores are so, oh, it's
Oh, don't
crazy.
worry. We're going to loop back to that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
in E flat, by the way,
Wow. Okay. So
which
that would
makes
make
total
sense.
sense.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which makes exact sense. Yeah. It's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, she did something with this album. And I would have to say, as a loyal Ari fan, this is definitely, I think, her best album for sure.
Okay, so we know that it's tied to the movie. We know that
Yep.
it's a concept album. When did it drop exactly?
It dropped March 8th.
Okay, so it dropped
Mm-hmm.
March 8th. Concept album, beginning to end. Loyal fans knew that was
Mm-hmm.
happening. How does the whole album tie together? How does it listen as a concept? What story is it telling?
Sure. So essentially, the themes of the film are the overarching question is sort of if you had the option, if you had the choice to erase someone from your memory, would you? And of course, that's, I mean, one of the craziest questions you could even ask somebody because while I'm sure people who have gone through tough breakups and somebody who has done them really wrong or somebody who broke their heart, of course you want to forget all of that, but you what Jim Carrey realizes in the movie, and I hate to spoil it, but it's also been out since 2004. So, like, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But what he faces is what he's getting his procedure done where they erase his memory because his ex girlfriend, he finds out, erased him from her memory. So, what he has to do, they have to map out his brain, they have to see all the memories that are associated with her. And so in the film, we're watching, he makes the decision. He's like, if she wants to do it, then I'm going to do it too. And about towards the end of all of these memories, he has to relive them, but he realizes that he doesn't want that anymore. And no matter how hurt he was by the way their relationship ended up, and it's sort of like that right person, wrong time kind of thing, he realizes that that's not what he wants, because even though it ended so poorly, he still wants to have those memories to move forward with. And of course, they end up meeting again at the end of the movie, and it turned, oh my gosh, it's so incredible. But it's
We
really
need to
all
have a
about
viewing
how,
party.
seriously, like, I need director's commentary. I need to just like put on a headset. It's just talk through it. But it's just the way she really ties that theme into it, because it came out of her recent divorce with her husband Dalton. And of course, Eternal Sunshine actually was Mac Miller's favorite movie, which, I don't know if you know the story of Mac Miller, but what we like, I can't put words in her mouth, but the love of her life, essentially. And with him passing, it really put her in this position of, how do I move on from someone who cared about me so much and move to these other men who aren't ever going to treat me the way he did? So she divorces Dalton. She comes out with this album, and now sort of the first half is talking about, could I forget you? I want to forget you. It goes through a lot of different emotions of, how do I feel about this? We start with the intro, which is End of the World, and it's very majestical. It's very fantastical. It's sort of, let me actually pull it up, because I know there's definitely going to be some lyrics that I definitely want to go through. But
it's so fun to
for
hear, like,
the
from your
start,
perspective, what you're hearing.
yeah, it's really, I mean, like, the first listen I don't think I've ever had as an emotional first listen of an album than I did this one. Like, the movie was fresh in my mind. I had just done a deep dive, and I read along with the lyrics, as I always do the first listen. And immediately it just all was like, wow, she just referenced so many things, which then she comes out with a music video. It's okay, we'll get to it. But she starts the album with asking, how can I tell if I'm in the right relationship? And that basically sets the whole tone, because at the end of the album, her grandma, her nona, comes on the last track, and the last thing she says is the answer to that question. So while you're going through all of her thought process, she finally gets the answer at the end, which is chills up my body. Um, but yeah, so she starts with the intro, which oh my gosh, just the best way for her to start that album. And then we get to Bye, which is this like, bye bye boy bye. She came into the studio one day when she was really hurt, she was really upset, and she wanted to just channel all those emotions and be like, bye, like, this is easy. I don't want to know you. I don't want to have this going on anymore. And then we get into Don't Want to Break Up Again, this sort of, I know this is wrong, but I don't want to end it, because I don't want to fall back into this pattern. Like, I really want to make this work. And then you get into Saturn Returns, and then into Eternal Sunshine, which Eternal Sunshine, she's essentially, I mean, she's telling the entire theme of what this is about. She's calling him, we don't know exactly who she's talking about. She's talking about, you just my eternal sunshine. And of course, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, you'll come to find out spotless because they erase the spots. But Eternal Sunshine is that person who she wants to erase from her memory. Now, of course, there are speculations about, is it, Mac Miller? Is it her recent divorce? Who else could it be about? But it really sort of, I think that's when we start to get a little bit more, that's kind of, I think, the ending of that arc, because then we move into Supernatural, where she's talking about, it's that transitional period from letting go of what was and accepting what is becoming, and moving into sort of the new Ethan Slater era of, I found a new boy and he's all mine and he's on my side. She is so incredible. But then we get to, True Story, The Boy Is Mine, Yes, and which are all sort of these like pop girl, basically what people wanted. It's the very Thank You Next Ari that we've had in the past, where it's that sort of upbeat, really, I mean, the rhythm is just super, it just has you on your feet. Yes and was the single because it's one of those, people like to joke that it's like the H&M pop kind of thing that
Yeah,
you'd
it
hear in
does sound like
H&M.
that. Yep.
And it is, and it absolutely is. But then you get to We Can't Be Friends, and that is the one she released the music video for. Now, what I do love about her is that she's so detailed and specific. I think that Taylor Swift also is that, because when you have such a discography and you have such a fan base, you have to be so particular with the decisions that are made, the dates, the which track gets the video, which, you know, what the album, what are you going to scrap? Who are you going to show what kind of song first? All that kind of stuff. So that song, oh my gosh. Then the video has a lot of Mac references too, which absolutely sobbing, and has Evan Peters in it too. That sort of is really, if you were to sum up the entire movie and the album and explain the meaning, she put it all into that video. So that really was the sobbing point for me. That was when I was like, oh, okay, all
Because
right,
it
Miss
kind of
Ari,
combines
there you
all
go.
your elements. Like it's combining what you like
Exactly.
about her voice, what you like about her writing style, the lyrics, but then for you as the actor, the visuals.
Yeah, because she started on Broadway, so to see her become, and she was Nickelodeon actor too, which definitely left a bit of trauma on her. But just to see her, the way she sings now, her voice has become so just finished. She feels very finished, and you can tell through kind of her diction and just sort of the style that she's writing in now. It's changed a lot, and you can tell that by the interviews that she's doing and what she says. I mean, she's never been happier. So you can really sort of
That
tell
comes
this.
through
It's
in your art.
beautiful. Yeah. And that, I think, is why the album resonates so much, is because I think everyone sees that, and it's so audible. I mean, you can, by the
Authentic
first
to you.
song, you could tell exactly.
You can hear it.
Yeah.
Are
And
you excited that
it's
she's going back
incredible.
to Broadway roots? Are you like pumped
Where's
for
she going?
Wicked,
Oh, for Wicked.
the
Oh,
movie?
I'm telling you, that is my Super Bowl. Eric and I have had plans to see this movie since like the day it was announced. Cynthia actually I got to meet Cynthia my sophomore year. We did a masterclass with her, and she's probably my favorite Broadway actress. I mean, we had her in The Color Purple, outstanding performance. Her voice is so flawless. There's no better duo they could have picked for this. I mean, The Wizard of Oz is my all-time favorite movie, so of course Wicked has this special connection to me anyway. But it's Ari's dream role, Cynthia's voice, put those together.
It's going to be so cool. You're going to have the best November because it's that and Inside Out 2. Your Disney dreams coming true. Your Ari dreams coming true.
It's a little crazy that I'm being gifted so much, because I'll be in New York hopefully by then. So that'll be a whole new experience to add on to that. Oh,
that's so exciting. Okay, so we've tapped into some of the things that we're listening to as we're going through albums, and you approach things very much so in what's the artist's vision, and then how does that resonate with me through their singing, through their lyrics, through the way they've organized it. There's some really cool things to think about there. But you always mention your love of soundtracks.
Yes.
So is there anything we've already kind of hinted in the soundtrack of Eternal Sunshine? What else, what other really awesome soundtracks would you recommend the listener give a listen to?
Sure. Well, I will say I am sort of, like, my friends just know me as the person who always has the AirPod in. I will, no matter where I am. It is so weird, and it is just a thing that I do. I will always have music playing. I just need it. And I've sort of realized that I kind of operate in a movie way. because I am an
Your life
actor
is a
and
movie.
it
Yes.
my I hate to be that cliche like live your life like a movie, but honestly, I have a playlist for any kind of feeling, and I basically exist with I have a playlist called Fantasy. It's on my Spotify. It's public if anybody wants it. It's Ayden Behn on Spotify. It's my fantasy playlist, but that essentially is my soundtrack. It has sort of those like 50s, 60s crooner kind of smooth, slow Billie Holiday, those kind of songs. And I think that is where I started to explore soundtracks in terms of that era. And
Okay.
I really started to discover, like Ennio Morricone, Pierre Piccioni,
Mm-hmm.
some really like Italian soundtracks, and oh, I could talk about it forever. But I put together a list of my favorites.
Oh, good. Because
In
I think
terms
that would be
of
so fun to listen to.
yes, Bohemian Rhapsody. I am obsessed with Queen. I'm wearing a Queen shirt right now just for the occasion. But Rami Malek, I think Freddie Mercury is like my biggest inspiration in life. So music wise, to have such an incredible discography behind the film anyway, but to then mix it with a Live Aid performance and other very niche performances in terms of soundtrack wise, it is just so brilliantly crafted. And to hear these live snippets that have some of them have never been heard that are Freddie's authentic, like cracking voice, chills. Like it really, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you hear him, and it's sort of like being in the studio with him, and the movie, of course, incredible film, one of the best of all time, I would argue. But the soundtrack it just goes with it. So now whenever I want to listen to Queen, I'll just turn on that soundtrack because it has all the songs
Nice.
there, but different versions of them. So that's one of my
Well, hold
favorites.
on. Before you go from that,
Yeah,
I have to go
yeah,
get your input.
yeah.
Did you feel the same way about the Elvis soundtrack? Because that soundtrack, I did a really cool
Haven't
presentation on it when it came
watched.
out. You didn't watch
Oh,
Elvis?
I
Oh,
haven't seen it.
we
It's on
can
my
have a
list.
viewing party.
Okay, okay, perfect.
I love that soundtrack
Yeah,
because it does a similar thing.
yeah.
It takes sounds that were authentically Elvis,
Hmm.
but it mixes it with raw, kind of quote unquote dirty sounds from
Oh,
today's epicness,
love. Okay,
so
yeah,
that you kind of get, when you're listening to the soundtrack, I think the idea is it emulates what it would have felt like to hear rock and roll for the first time in the
yeah.
50s, because it sounded
Wow.
dirty, it
Oh my
sounded
God,
new.
chills, chills.
The
Yeah,
soundtrack does the
love.
same thing. And I think a
Okay.
few of the songs got overplayed, unfortunately.
Hmm.
But when you listen to that
Happens. Yep.
soundtrack from beginning to end, you get the feel of what a
Okay.
first time listen could have felt like. Hearing
Love.
those sounds and those progressions and those
Okay.
instrumentations and those
Yeah.
lyrics for the first time in the 50s. So I like how it intentionally makes you feel,
Yeah.
even though it's not authentic at all.
It really, yeah, what you just described is so similar because especially when you first see like Freddie and the band in the studio and you do get to see them playing around with the instruments, you actually get to watch and hear what stuck
Mm-hmm.
specifically. And you get those drums. And, when we see the development of We Will Rock You, you start seeing the layering of the hand percussion and the guitar. And oh my gosh,
Yes.
crazy to see them put that together like that. It really does feel like I'm witnessing it with them. Like I felt like I was at Live Aid. Like I was like, why wasn't I here? What this? Oh my gosh, this is like my dream. Why didn't I get a chance to go? Like I'm upset. Like,
So it gives. So do you find that when you're using this, when you're listening to soundtracks, are you listening to them in how they help portray what you're seeing?
mhm.
And then that just helps bring a whole new movie aspect to life? Or are you listening for certain elements?
I think it definitely depends. I think that I'm trying to remember what the name of there's this one album. I believe it's Italian. I want to say it's called Audio Amore Mio. Of course, I butchered that
No,
pronunciation,
that
but
wasn't too bad. Good
love.
job.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. I think it might be Pierre Piccioni, but it is one of those. It's more so a score, so that is like dominated by instruments and orchestra, and I think I resonate with, there's a different answer in terms of soundtrack and in terms of score. I think that if a film has a good soundtrack, I'm able to immerse myself more so within the story and kind of watch it with the words in my head, and sort of, it's, they're kind of giving me that extra tool to decipher, either do I want to bring my own meaning to this lyric, and is the instruments, are they kind of adding to that feeling. So soundtracks is always tricky, but with a score, I think that I can never really maintain that story in my head because I feel it on a personal level. I feel like I my next answer, which I'll kind of tie into, is Soul, Pixar Soul.
Mm-hmm.
There, I've never in my life resonated so much with the meaning of a film and the themes of it and all of that, but the fact that it's set in this whole jazzy time, and you're getting, this man who was so inspired by jazz that he saw with his dad when he was younger, and he incorporates that into his playing. And while you're watching the film to go through his story, you're experiencing the same thing that he is. And then he goes
Mm-hmm.
into, this is what I love about this movie, he goes into a place called the Zone, and he is just kind of riffing on this piano, he's doing his thing, and he gets transported to this blue all around him, and it's just the most elegant piano playing, and just, oh my gosh, it's so incredible. And he's getting taken away from where he is at to his subconscious, where he just gets carried away in the art. And I think that, like, without even having to see that same exact track would have made me feel the same way. And so, however, I'll usually listen while I'm taking a walk or at the beach. Typically, I'm at the beach about every day. So I get my alone time, my AirPods in, and there are just those scores that really, I experience it through my eyes. Like I'm experiencing my own film, and it's chills that somebody can just experience that from something in their ear. That's crazy.
Yeah. The intentional
Crazy.
listening though, like you give time to listen. It makes
Oh
me
yeah.
think the Soul movie always makes me think of Wally from way back. What was that, like early 2000s? That film has a lovely
Oh,
soundtrack. But then the
yes.
other
Hello,
one that came to
Dolly.
me,
Oh my
I know,
gosh. Come
so
on.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear or see Gone with the Wind?
Okay. That's the one that's like a long movie, right?
Oh, 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 yes,
It
yes.
is
And
on my list. I
okay,
have to sit down.
I
I
will
know.
sit and watch it with you.
Okay,
It took
perfect.
me like a half a dozen times.
Okay.
And it
Wow.
wasn't until I did a massive research paper on the score that I could finally
Love.
get through the film
Okay. Well, it's one of
because
the most iconic of all time. It's like one of the best movies
it's
in the
huge,
world. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's wall to wall sound. And
Oh,
that was
wow.
hard for me to digest. It was,
Yeah.
wall to wall, nonstop, but the themes are part of the movie. The music tells the story. And
Mm,
without spoiling
mm,
it, you have to
mm.
follow all of the themes because everyone's theme
Okay.
starts individual. And everyone who gets together, the themes intertwine, including
No.
the main. I'm telling you, I will watch all 3 hours and
Okay.
however many
Yeah.
minutes with
Okay.
you,
We're
but
watching.
you
Love.
have to do
Yeah.
theme analysis as you're like
Okay.
listening to what
Yeah.
instruments get the theme and how the theme changes as it
Per
ties in with
person.
other people's themes. And
Oh,
it
okay.
just that soundtrack and that film, I still can only,
Mm.
I have to take a very long nap before I watch it.
Yep. Uh-huh. Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Of
there's some
course.
moments that are just not appropriate, but the
Yeah.
themes
Hmm.
and the intensity of the score,
Yeah.
without it, that film would be nothing.
Oh my God. I think when I was sort of looking up, I needed to have it all in front of me to see, like, okay, what films am I going to talk about? What kind of are my highlights? And it was up there with Sound of Music, which that's a whole nother thing. We can of course talk about that one. But who is that the one with Tammy's theme? Is it
Oh,
Tammy's theme?
no, but it's Tara's theme.
Someone's Tara's
Yeah.
theme. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that actually, it's so funny. That's one of the ones I do know from it. That's on my fantasy playlist. Of course it is.
Of
That
course it
was
is.
in the ending montage of the Great Movie Ride. It used to have a film in Disney World, And
What?
the score, oh my gosh, I can't even believe I didn't think about this. The end montage is kind of all of these classic, the best
Epic
movies of
scores.
all time.
Mm-hmm.
And it puts, of course, The Ride is no longer a thing, but when I was a kid, that score, it was a mix of all of these movie scores. You're getting movie scenes playing during it. You're getting all of you get Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Nightmare on Elm Street, Jaws,
Yes.
Gone with the Wind. Then you had like Finding Nemo, Pirates of the Caribbean. It would just mix all that was part of sort of my love for, yeah, I'm just realizing now that that's sort
That's
of
so
look at the
cool.
synapses. I'm like, wow, okay, this is a
But
little,
isn't it like
yeah,
it's just so cool because you're also tying that to the nostalgia of growing up. And I
yes,
think that's the point of this conversation. If we are just
yes,
going big picture looking down,
oh yeah,
you and I are going to interpret music differently because of how we
hmm
approach life and what our
yeah,
purposes are on the planet, which is why it's so fun to hear you
absolutely.
talk about
Oh, love
how
it.
you interpret film scores and how
Yeah,
you interpret albums.
yeah.
Because whoever's listening, everyone has a different lived experience, and
hmm
how
hmm
you can process the little thing in your ear that's giving you music whenever you want it and how your soundtrack of life works.
Yeah.
That's the point. What are you listening for? What are
Yes.
you listening to? And how can it
Yeah.
make your world a better place?
Yes. And I think like being able to gauge that too, being able to really train your ear. I mean, just watching you in class has been such, for lack of a better words, inspiration, because I'm watching you approach it from, obviously you have all your education, but you also have the same passion for just listening. And I think I've definitely taken notes of like, okay, I can't necessarily use all of the same tools that you use. Oh my gosh, what was it called? The little thing, the
My
fork,
tuning
the
fork.
fork. Yes. Like, I don't think I could ever use that. I mean, I'm sure maybe if I
I
tried,
love my fork.
but like just watching you sort of use those tools and incorporating sort of the tools that we could use coming from a place of maybe we had never even touched on music theory before. I think that was one of those things that we could really be like, yeah, she has all this education and she's listening for different things, but she also is experiencing it the same way we are anyway. Like that Jacob Collier song with Brandy
Little
Carlisle,
blue
I listen to it
baby
once a
child.
day. Like it's crazy how the experience really connects. That's crazy.
Mm. It's
It's a
just so
wild
fun. This
concept.
is so fun to hear
Yeah.
hear your thoughts, and I'm so thankful that you shared. We need to make
Of
sure that we
course.
get your entire list of
Yes.
soundtracks to listen to. I'll put that in the
Yes.
episode
Yep.
notes.
Yep.
I will definitely put your Insta handle because folks will
Love.
want to follow where you end up.
Yes.
What's your
Please.
dream job, Ayden Behn?
Dream job. Oh gosh. Okay. Honestly, I oh gosh, I'm gonna say ooh, okay, I'm gonna say actor because that I mean I really like I'm not made for work. I'm made for using art to change the world. That's been a
Mm.
constant in my brain since I was a kid. And I think that I have never, there's never been a thing in my life that I've woken up and went to bed thinking about other than acting. And I mean, there's no more content that I consume. That's really all I do. It's all I care about. And there's such a world of it that no matter, I mean, I would like to end up Meryl Streep. I want an EGOT. I would love to do a Broadway play, have, an audio book, maybe an original theme for a movie or something,
Yes.
but definitely sort of like that Bradley Cooper, really well established director, actor, just yeah, anything really where I just want to be able to act to change the world. That's the dream job, honestly. Yeah.
Yay. Well, I can't
Yeah.
wait to be in every audience for
Oh, of
everything
course.
you
No,
do. I'm
front
so
row seats.
excited.
Absolutely.
Yes, you
Yes, of
know I will be there
course. Yes.
clapping
No,
so
and yeah, you will be the first person I invite. Yep. Yeah.
Yay! I can't wait. Oh my gosh. Well, I have really enjoyed this. We're going to have to loop back
Yes.
the next time a really big album
Yes.
drops and have another conversation.
Oh, yeah, and we have to watch Gone with the Wind. Yeah.
No questions asked.
Yes.
I think that should be
Yes.
post-graduation party.
Oh, we'll have a party for sure. No, yeah, us geeking out about film music. Yeah.
It wouldn't just be you and me. There'd be a big old
Listen,
posse.
we have a lot of other people who will want to come. Trust me. Yeah. Yep.
Yay. Okay, before we sign off, I always
Yeah.
give the guest the opportunity to say one thing that really matters. They want the listener to walk away from this conversation with.
Okay.
So what's the one thing you want them to walk away from this conversation with?
Okay. I would say pay attention to the things that you consume on a daily basis, whether or not that be food, what you're drinking, the music that you consume, the art that you look at, the books you read, the advertisements you watch, the apps you use. I think that we live in an age where it's so easy to get consumed by all that, and it really affects us more than we think. And I'm sort of trying to break the trap of what is real life. And we all can get caught up in the digital world for sure, but I think maybe put in an AirPod and go explore nature, go take a walk, and just be open to these new experiences outside of the digital world. There's so many soundtracks that you can sort of morph your life into, and that'll bring you so much more joy rather than all of these other vices. I mean, you get so much dopamine from TikTok, Instagram. Yeah, sure. Then you realize your screen time's 8 hours a day. Go watch a movie, find a soundtrack, be open to it, and use music as not just something to play in the background, but as something that really will, I mean, it can change your life. It will change the way you live your day-to-day life. So if you really concentrate on your consumption and use it to your advantage, you really open up this whole new world. So it just really takes that first step of being open. That I think is like the key. I think that's the key.
Oh, that's so good, Ayden. This is so much fun. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was like my dream.
Okay, friends, what did you learn? What are you taking away from this one? You can find me over at patreon.com/musicedmatters. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook. You can look up Ayden Behn and see all the awesome things that Ayden's about to go do. I'm just so excited to see where Ayden goes on this planet and the art that comes into the world and the entertainment that comes in the world because of Ayden. I'm also so glad that you listened today, so thank you. Thank you for giving of your time. Thank you for listening to the podcast. No matter what you're doing today, you matter, my friend. We all know that music matters, especially what you consume and what you put out and what you create and what you spend time with. And I'll see you next time on the Music It Matters podcast.